Hello there. My name's Ken Westin. I'm a solutions engineer here with LimaCharlie. I'm excited to bring this webinar to you folks today. I'm going to be talking about beyond EDR, securing your SaaS attack surface with LimaCharlie adapters. Really, what this talk really is about is really thinking about beyond EDR, particularly when it comes to detection and response. A lot of folks think about LimaCharlie as an EDR platform, and they're not really aware of all of the other things that we can actually leverage within our security operations platform. So I wanted to start with sort of explaining sort of where the landscape is now, where the security operations platform might fit in into your security stack, maybe even how it can help. And then we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about some of the ways that we can have better visibility into our SaaS applications. I'll kind of walk through some of the key data sources, and then I'm going to walk into a short demo, and then we'll have some time for a few questions. So first off, I'm not sure if folks really have seen this particular slide. This was a graphic. It went a little bit viral, actually, on LinkedIn. It was built out by the software analyst cyber research group. They put a lot of work into this, and you can see it's a really nice visual. But when I saw this, I've been working in the security space for quite a while. I spent about 4 years at Splunk, 3 years at Elastic. I worked for EDR, XDR vendors, and even modern SIM vendors and things. And it's always this sort of thing where you keep adding more and more tools. And when I looked at this chart, I just realized how much of a nightmare things have really become. If we think about this, every single one of these logos is something that your security operations team has to integrate, or your IT team has to integrate into their existing stack. You also have to think about every single one of these logos is also a license. That's a separate negotiation that you have to go through. And all of them have different pricing models. Some of them are going to be based on data ingest. Some are going to be priced based on the number of customers that you have, right? So there's a lot of kind of complexity that goes in just to even getting these tools set up, let alone you have situations where you have shelfware, where organizations may buy a tool, they'll spend a lot of money on it, but only to find that they don't have the resources to actually get that tool set up, integrated, and deployed. So with LimaCharlie, we take a slightly different stance. And I really like our analogy when we talk about LimaCharlie as sort of a box of Legos. We're not sort of these sort of individual siloed tools where, oh, you're an EDR, you're a SIM, you do cloud security. We do pretty much all of it, right? We actually have a security operations platform. And our founder, Max, he really saw that this was a huge need in the industry. After years from working at EDR vendors and SIM vendors himself as an engineer. And so we wanted to do something a little bit different. So when we think about a security operations platform, we can't think of it as a box of Legos where we can bring in EDR capabilities, SIM capabilities, cloud security capabilities, and this is all based on usage too. So our pricing isn't based on some sort of long-term contract where we're going to lock you in. It's actually based on usage. So the number of sensors you have deployed, maybe the amount of data you ingest. It really depends on the data source that you're going to be working with. So it's a very very different approach, I think, than a lot of organizations have been dealing with. And then on top of that, we're also able to put that on top of a security data lake. So we're actually able to store logs for long periods of time that's actually searchable. So you get a full year of data retention, regardless of how you're ingesting that particular data. It's also important to point out that we are truly multi-tenant. So one really nice thing about being a cloud-based security operations platform is that we can truly leverage the power of the cloud. We haven't had to go through and have like a tool that was really designed for on-prem data centers, and then we had to go and recode and re-architect for the cloud, and then kind of make it look like it's multi-tenant. We are truly multi-tenant where every org is sort of separated. And then on top of that, everything that you see in the UI when I show you a demo, we can also leverage through an API. Now, if you're an application developer, an MSSP, this provides unlimited flexibility when it comes to your secure operations platform. A lot of times we have organizations that'll leverage our platform, maybe for EDR, and all of a sudden now they can also add incident response and SIM capabilities as another line of business for their customers, right? So really kind of being able to stack that so you can actually, with our box of Legos, truly build your security operations platform of your dreams. So today I'm going to be talking more specifically about SaaS-based attacks, and I really like this work. Actually, one of our co-founders, Chris, had pointed me to this. I really liked this particular set of research from Push Security. A lot of folks are familiar with MITRE ATT&CK, which has more of an endpoint bias. We always see the MITRE ATT&CK evals with all the EDR vendors, fighting over who got 100% or 110% done today, right? But that's great. However, if you look at some of the biggest attacks we've been facing over the last few years, it really wasn't targeting the endpoint. A lot of times it was targeting the cloud, particularly SaaS-based applications. And so I really like this work that they've done because they've built this matrix out similar to what we've seen with MITRE ATT&CK, but more specifically for SaaS-based applications where they've aligned tactics and techniques. And it's a really great place to start if you're not really sure, like, what should I be monitoring? What should I detect? But one thing I've really found is that it's important to really get these data sources set up, maybe even simulate an attack, whether it's adversary emulation tools like a red team operation, to sort of generate logs to really look at what's those logs look like. Because I have found that particularly when it comes to SaaS and cloud-based applications, it is very different depending on the organization. It's going to be very sort of, I hate to use the word bespoke, but it is. Every organization is going to be a little bit different. And oftentimes you'll find pieces of data that you may want to be that's not necessarily cookie cutter, but it'll be specific to a particular organization. But I definitely recommend taking a look at that. I have a link there to the GitHub, so highly recommend you take a look at that. I also really like they have videos too that kind of walk through some of the attacks as well. That really helps me kind of understand, okay, here's how I can actually set this up in my environment so I can actually test this out as well. So a couple of the techniques I wanted to focus on that seem to be more high profile lately is first off is ghost logins. So ghost logins are a situation where you maybe have a particular authentication, maybe a single factor authentication, maybe username and password that you use to set up that account. And then maybe you set up sample multi-factor authentication. However, you forget to disable the prior authentication mechanism. And that appears to be one of the situations that we faced with the Snowflake breach, which was a massive compromise. And it was really no blame, really, Snowflake or their customers. It was just a particular misconfiguration. It's one of those accounts that led to them being compromised. And we see that time and time again, particularly when it comes to cloud-based infrastructure, SaaS applications. Misconfigurations are going to be key. And so it's really a really good one to kind of focus on. So I highly recommend, again, taking a look at some of the videos too that Push Security offer, because they really walk through some of those particular attacks and what they look like. Another one, and I kind of talked about this in my last webinar when I focused on Okta, but API tokens is another huge one, right? When someone is looking for these, oftentimes they'll find API tokens that are maybe in a GitHub repository, maybe even a Google Doc, like someone saves it there and their account gets compromised through like an info stealer. And then an attacker now has an API key. Now it's really dangerous, especially when that API key has super user privileges. Because even if you were to reset the password for that user's account or maybe even delete it, that API token still may persist and live on. So it's really important to keep an eye on when those tokens are getting created, as well as any sort of activity that's associated with that as well. So oftentimes to establish persistence, they will steal a token. They'll create a new user, escalate that user's privileges, so that even if that token got erased, they would still have another account and they can keep creating tokens all day long, right? So you can kind of see why we want to be able to really monitor for any sort of new API tokens that are being generated. So when we look at some of the key data sources for LimaCharlie, these are just some of the more popular ones that I run into with a lot of our customers. But again, a lot of folks know us for our EDR agents that we have deployed. So that's kind of where I have that list of our native EDR agents that we support. We support all the major operating systems: Windows, Mac, Linux. We also have one for Docker as well as for Chrome. So that's, I think we're one of the few EDR vendors that actually provide agents for those particular platforms. We also still do integrate with third-party EDR EPS tools, particularly if you're looking like antivirus or like an endpoint-based detection where you're running signature-based detections and things like that. One thing I really love about LimaCharlie is that we do play nice with others. We try to work well within the existing security ecosystem. We're not going to try to, box people in or, have a black box or anything like that. So we can ingest log sources from any source. If it generates logs, we're going to find a way to get it into our platform. And so a lot of folks will leverage us for Windows Defender, for example, because our log retention is much cheaper than like a Microsoft, just as an example. And having that data that's searchable. And you can also write additional detections around that too on some of that data, like aggregating alerts and things like that. So just a couple examples of what you can do with that particular data. We then have cloud platforms. We support all of the major cloud platforms and all of the different tools that are sort of within them. So we can bring any of those log sources into the platform as well. Again, like high volume log sources like CloudTrail. I find a lot of folks don't want to bring those logs into some of their legacy SIEM because of the data cost, because it's very expensive for them to not only ingest that, but also search it. And so with us, we can actually bring it into our platform much more cost efficient. And you can search it for a full year, and it's very easy for us to roll that off if you need it for a longer term. But the most important aspect for today's webinar is the SaaS-based application. So we provide a lot of visibility into what's actually happening within your SaaS applications. We provide it for Slack, GitHub, HubSpot, some HubSpot and Zendesk. Those are some of the newer ones we've just rolled out. A lot of these are based on demand from our customers. They come to us, hey, these are the tools we have in our arsenal. We want to get visibility into these particular tools. Now, when you're looking at some of these, you're not going to have sort of cookie cutter types of detections oftentimes. There are some things we may want to look for, like the creation of new users, creation of API tokens to integrate with some of these tools. Those are fairly easy. We'll walk through some of those today. But I did want to highlight that oftentimes it's really important to sort of generate some of those logs, look at the logs, and then start writing detections based on sort of your environment versus other people's environments. So onboarding data into LimaCharlie is very straightforward with a lot of these SaaS-based applications. So if they have an API token where we can get that generated right, make sure we don't store that anywhere that's not secure, right? We don't want to put that in our GitHub or anything like that, because we, especially with these, when they have admin access, that could be an issue. But it's very easy to generate that key, plug it directly into the LimaCharlie interface for the sensor, and boom, that data is now flowing directly into the platform. You'll have a solid visibility of it, and I'll show you that in the demo here just shortly, where you can actually see that directly in that particular sensor. Now, another example is Okta. Again, it's one of my favorite log sources. And it makes sense because, this is the sort of the crux of our identity source, right? So it has access to all of the applications within our environment oftentimes, or at least the majority of them. So this is another one where it's very easy for us to just get an API token, plug that into the LimaCharlie interface, and automatically that data is now flowing into the environment. So now I'm going to jump into the demo real quick. So as I mentioned, we have our sensors here. I just want to show this really quick. So when we look at our sensors, we have our endpoint agents that are right here. These are very easy to get deployed. Again, we can deploy these, and however you're deploying software to your organization, there's a number of different ways depending on if you're using MDM solutions or what have you. But these are very easy for us to get those deployed. When it comes to external data sources, this is where we have our adapters. So for example, 1Password, it's very easy. I can click into here. I select or create an installation key that I need. I select it. Again, I put a unique name in. I put in that token from the 1Password admin interface. And then I'm pretty much got the data flowing, right? So I'll show you an example of what that looks like within my user interface here. I have a list of all of my sensors, everything from Macs, Windows systems, everything like that. If I go into 1Password, there it is for my cybersecurity.io. And I can drop directly into this timeline. And you can see that when I got this account set up, I started just creating some additional users. And that's one thing that you really want to monitor for the creation of these applications, particularly if you're able to identify if that user is an administrator, right? So here I can see that there are create, right? This is join. That's where you actually have like a privilege group. But here I can very quickly see all this information about me. I can then go in quickly and build a DNR rule if I like to, but I already have one that I've created. So this is a very basic rule where I'm just looking at, hey, I want you to report when a new user gets created. I want you to trigger an alert, and I want you to pass in the name of the person that did that. Now, I can modify this very easily. So I can say, hey, I'm Ken. I'm the only administrator of 1Password in my organization. If anyone else creates a user or anything like that, then I want to increase the severity of that particular alert. And I can do that within my detection logic if I wish to. Another example would be Okta. Let me go back into my sensors here. There we go. And again, I can view I can view a live feed if I want to, but I can also view a timeline. And you can see I have a lot of events because I've actually been running some adversary emulation tools against my Okta infrastructure. And here's where we can actually see where tokens are created, right? An access token was generated as a result of that. And I could go in and I could create another rule based on that very easily. Again, go in here, it's going to provide the initial scaffolding for a particular rule. But I've already got a lot of these generated. So I've created one for if someone is an admin and logs in, I can get an alert for that. I've created one for when someone creates an access token. When someone deactivates MFA, again, it was really great for me to kind of run these sort of adversary emulation tools so I can actually look at those logs. And it's really nice to be able to see that in the timelines, like see how the sequence of those events are actually, the logs are generated as I'm sort of going through that workflow. And then that allows me to then, okay, what sort of situations, how do I want to pay attention to it? What particular parameters are important to me? And then I can modify the detection logic accordingly. So this is just sort of a quick overview of how easy it is to sort of bring in SaaS-based applications into our platform. As you can see, it's just a matter oftentimes of bringing those API tokens in. But sometimes, even if you have, sort of a wonky application or even maybe a custom application of your own, it's very easy for us to bring in those log sources as well. We have adapters for like JSON. So if you do like webhooks, there's probably like 100 different ways you can probably get data into our platform. But SaaS apps are a really great place to get started. If you are interested in learning more about this, or if you would like to maybe even have us give you a more in-depth demo, maybe talk about some of the specific applications that you want to get visibility into, feel free to reach out to us. More than happy to run a demo, or maybe even run a workshop with your team where we actually show you how to onboard data and write detections. And so more than happy to do that. But with that, that's all I wanted to show you for the demo today. I did want to point out that we are going to be on the road. Actually, me specifically, I'm going to be doing some workshops. We have a B-side San Francisco workshop where I'm going to be doing some purple teaming with cloud-based detections. A lot of that stuff you saw with Okta today in the demo. I'm going to sort of show you how to generate those logs using some really neat adversary emulation tools. And then we'll also be at RSA, of course, so we'll have a booth there. We're also going to be running a happy hour at the Kona Street Market. I'm looking forward to that, catching up with some of our customers as well as prospects. And I will be at B-Sides Dublin, and looking forward to that. So that will be another workshop I'll be doing with the kind of roll your own EDR, where we're going to be deploying some agents and then showing folks how to write detections based on that, and even how to build sort of your own personal EDR lab. And we'll also be at FirstCon 25 here in Copenhagen in June. Looking forward to that. So we're going to be all over. We'll be some other places too here in the summer. We'll announce those. But with that, I think we'll give you guys some time back for the rest of the day. I want to thank you all for taking the time to walk through this with me. And again, if you have any questions about what I covered today, and if you would like a little bit more detail, more than happy to jump on a demo or run a workshop with your team. And we'll see you in the next one. See y'all.